The puck is about to drop on your favorite all-Canadian hockey podcast. Without further ado, here are your co-hosts, Mick and Grant. Enjoy Canada Puck! Hey guys, welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap of what's going on in the world of hockey, specifically in Canada. We talk about other stuff too, so it's not just that. I'm your co-host, Mick. You can find me on Twitter at ProfitMick, and I'm joined every episode by the man you see that lives above me,
Grant, on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. We are going into a busy month of March. It seems like the NHL is trying to play catch-up all at once with their schedule, or maybe it's just because there's only like 2 months left in the season where they have to do it this way. But there are a lot of teams, especially on the East Coast, playing a lot of hockey games over the next few weeks here. So I am excited.
Yeah, it's good. It's one of those things that, like, I keep calling it the double-edged sword, right? Like, every game, because it has those divisional implications, it's a 4-point swing either way, depending on the results. Super important. You'd like to take a little bit of a break, but I mean, at the same time, I remember about a year ago at this time when things started shutting down and we were just kind of left twiddling our thumbs. I'll take the abundance of sports and I'll take these meaningful games than not, right? So, I mean, hopefully you guys are all still entertained as well. If this is your first podcast, we're going to run through some headlines. We're just going to talk about kind of the big stories in the league, break down all the Canadian teams specifically. So if you're a fan of a different team, you don't want us to hear us talk about the greatest division in sports, frig off. Then we got some gambling advice, some fantasy advice, which we're and go from there. So good stuff. So big headlines, courtesy of NHL.com, because I have to throw that out there. Let's see. Go to standings. Click. Scroll down to the bottom because I think Scotia North is the top. That leaves us with the Mass Mutual East. What's going on in the Mass Mutual East this week?
One noteworthy thing that jumps off the old memory bank here is, did you see the Alex Ovechkin, and I can't even remember who it was. It was like third, fourth line guy, or at least somebody I didn't recognize. Yeah. So long, Pills.
Yep. Yeah, I did see that. He's kind of feisty, too, because even after I was watching some of the highlights from that Carlo hit, that Wilson on Carlo hit last night, and they were kind of running his mouth like Marchand was. And Ovechkin just kind of stepped between Wilson and Marchand and was like, get the fuck out of here. Why did he become so feisty?
Trent Frederick, is that the guy? Is that who we're thinking of here?
Some guy you probably will never hear of again. He'll be known as the Nutshot guy, and that's his claim to fame. So
I gotta say though, like, I was disappointed. I took a hard stance against Ovi in his younger days, just because of what he did to Canada in the World Juniors and kind of that arrogance that he carried about him. It's kind of grown on me, and I like Ovechkin. And that 2018 Stanley Cup Finals, not even the finals, it was the celebration where I was like, you know what, Ovi is a guy I could have a beer with. So he's grown on me the last few years, and then he kind of pulls this chicken shit move like that where he just clocks the guy in the twig and berries. I don't know, like, the guy shed him, and then he's ready to fight Ovechkin, and I think this was earlier in another game, and then next game or a little while later, Ovechkin is just like, fuck you, blah. I just... I am bewildered. I think that I finally understand bewilderment because that's how I think I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I feel like early on it was kind of we've talked about this in like nauseum over some beers before. It's kind of the Crosby Ovechkin. You almost had to pick a side back in the day, right? Was it the Canada guy versus this kind of player had a little bit more personality, a little more charisma, right? It was just not just a stone cold Russian, but he was kind of a Russian with like personality and pizzazz, right? So I've enjoyed watching his career, right? Thought good things, and he's just kind of quirky now, right? Like he's turning into kind of the weird, like, quirky elder statesman of the league at this point. So I'm for it. I'm drinking the Ovechkin Kool-Aid. I mean, if you zoom in on the background here, where is it? I mean, I do have like my signed Ovechkin picture back there. I'm sure I have some other. I think there's like a Capitals flag there. So obviously, I'm drinking the Ovechkin Kool-Aid. Take that with a grain of salt.
I have to say this. I have to say it at least once a year. Gary Bettman has robbed Alex Ovechkin of the goal-scoring record. I don't think that he's going to get there. And if we consider, what was it, 2 lockouts?
Yeah.
2 full lockouts.
Yep.
Or no, one full lockout, 2 half lockouts, plus the pandemic-shortened seasons. Like, and those are prime hockey years, too. Like, we're talking Ovechkin probably as the greatest goal scorer of all time.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets there now because he's approaching 36. He's got like 150 or so to go. Or maybe it was like 100. I can't remember. I think it was about 150, though.
Well, we talked about this a couple years ago, and it was if he's putting together, he needed something like 4 more 50 goals and a couple 30s to kind of trail off. I mean, based on the way the guys are playing nowadays, like if he's playing until his 40s, right? And like he's just kind of a special teams kind of player, right? Depending where he goes, I don't know, sky's the limit, but we'll see.
Did you ever see the episode of King of the Hill where I think it was, what was his friend? Bill Daughtry?
Yep.
He had like the high school record for rushing yards. And then they just like, the kid who was like 2 yards off and he's walking, just limps in with a splint. That's what I'm picturing right now. That's what I want Ovechkin to go into the Hall of Fame as. Just limping in a knee brace with the goal record.
Wasn't there something about, like, wasn't there a movie with Bernie Mac called, like, Mr. 3000 that was, like, the same? He had, like, 3,000 hits and someone broke it. So he, like, was trying to make a comeback to get to, like, 3001 or something like that.
They took away 2 of his hits. Come on, man. You should be better. They took away a couple, maybe it was 1 or 2 of his hits, and then he had to make this comeback to get back up to that level.
Gotcha. All right. Well, there we go. I apparently don't know much about Mr. 3000. How about on to the Honda West, where I know even less about what's going on in the Honda West this week?
I was kind of, nothing, when I was thinking about this earlier, nothing jumped off the page of me as something that happened in the Honda West. So I looked into a little bit. Didn't really there wasn't any really noteworthy news stories that jumped off the page at me. But I did come across this tweet. So Patrick Marleau got to start with the San Jose Sharks, I don't know, sometime in the 70s or something like that. He has now lived through 2 iterations of that original comeback jersey. So not only have they brought it back once and he's been a part of the team, they've now brought it back a second time and he's still a part of the team. And that was just so hard for me to wrap my head around. I was like, fuck, Patrick Marleau's been around a long time, man.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Huh. Yeah, I got really nothing in this division. I mean, it's kind of is this the most boring division? I think just because you have like those bottom feeders, those California teams play terrible hockey right now. The Ducks are on a 9-game losing streak. Like at some point that's gonna pop and they're gonna win a game. So like maybe bet some money on the Ducks occasionally, right? Like if you're getting those kind of good underdog values, because it's gonna hit at some point. Like it's gonna. They have to win. They can't lose the rest of the year, right? Like that's just professional sports. But it's just kind of, I'm like, I mean, I think we called Vegas, St. Louis, Colorado in some order, kind of in our power rankings. We were both off with the Wild, but I think even Grant early on was kind of saying that he wouldn't be surprised if the Wild are in 4th. I kind of feel like that's just how it's going to roll, you know? Not a lot of intrigue or excitement there, so boo. Boo, Honda West.
Yeah, get out of here, you dirty fucking hood rats. Moving on.
All right, Discover Central. That's fun. Anything cool going on in this Discover Central this week?
I have to say this because he was one of my homeboys back in the day, but Brent Seabrook retired kind of out of nowhere. He's been pushing for that comeback, dealing with a hip injury, I believe it was. He had surgery last year. Wasn't meant to be. Guy has to hang him up. And it's kind of the most anticlimactic way to go out because normally when we see people struggle, we see this tale where they kind of struggle to adapt, and there's some rebound where we say, hey, you know what? At least they got to relive their glory days, or at least they adapted. They, embraced this leadership role. Like Chelios, he went down to the AHL. He was captain for an AHL team for a little while. Like goofy shit like that. But Brent Seabrook doesn't get that send-off. He's just kind of fading off into obscureness now as one of the, 3-time Stanley Cup winner. He won a gold medal. I'm sure he's competed on the international stage, probably world championship, other stuff like that. But like, this is like the end of Brent Seabrook. We're never going to see him again. And the part that stings the most is that he actually named his kid Seven. So paying homage to the Seinfeld episode where George wants to name his kid Seven, Brent Seabrook actually did that. The kid's middle name is Seven. And that is obviously paying homage not only to Seinfeld, but what was his number with the Blackhawks.
Cool. And this was, one of those weird kind of sports dynasties, early 2000s, where they kind of picked up steam. And you've seen parts of them just kind of dissipate over time, right? They kind of hit big early, and then they have faded almost into obscurity. And you're right, he's one of the better defensemen of the last 10 years, right? If you were to rank them just based on kind of his achievements. And like his send off is kind of sad, right? As opposed to the like other guys like the Tom Brady's, right? Like if Tom Brady retired now, he went out on top, right? You're like that's kind of a cool feel good story. I feel like the Spurs did that too, right? They were one of those kind of sports dynasties that were good and they continued that excellence, whereas the Blackhawks started well and like the trend they've just trended downwards and now they're just kind of a thing. Like, what is Jonathan Toews playing, or is he hurt this year?
Taves is hurt this year, and they have kind of fallen off. They are sitting in a playoff spot. I don't know if they're going to be able to hang on to it. I have a feeling Nashville's going to push them, but it looks good for them right now. But one thing is that just rubs me the wrong way is that Brent Seabrook was booed relentlessly in his last few games in Toronto or Chicago, and he's like, that's the memory that he gets of being a Chicago Blackhawk. And that fucking sucks, man.
Well, what did Harvey Dent say? Either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. So
Brent Seabrook lived then.
He kept living, like he didn't die a hero, which is exciting, I suppose. Silver lining. But anyways, that was a weird segue, and I just like talking about The Dark Knight because that's probably one of the greatest movies of all time. We should just.
I watched.
I feel like my internet just cuts out occasionally. So like on the audio on the podcast, we heard what you said. I didn't hear what you said. You just kind of froze, and I just sit here and I'm like, all right, do I react or just go?
You know what? I kind of saw that freeze too. I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if you were saying something, so I just didn't say anything.
Okay.
I watch it all the time. Dark Knight is my go-to now.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. All right. I've like moved my computer over like slightly away from like my upstairs router, and I think I'm just on the edge where like occasionally I get like spotty internet, so maybe I have to move it back just a bit. Anyways.
Mrs. is upstairs watching porn, stealing the bandwidth.
Yeah, goddamn porn. Anyways, on to the Scotia North. Our weird Dark Knight segment to get to the North. Not sure how that happened. I mean, it should be called the Scotia Northeast because all the teams in the West are kind of just abysmal at this point and not having a very good week since we last spoke. Poor little guys. But we start at the bottom. Reverse orders. The Ottawa Senators. They split a series with the Flames this week.
And I mentioned this name a few weeks ago. It might have been in as a part of a FanDuel lineup. But Drake Batherson, who scored goals in 6 straight, tied the franchise record for most consecutive games with a goal. I think he's been held off the score sheet a couple times the last couple games. But Drake Batherson, man, like he's a low-cost option on FanDuel or on FanDuel slates. He's a guy you should keep an eye on. And one of those small pieces that, you know, as the Sens continue to build and improve and hopefully compete, he's a guy who I think is going to play a big role on this team.
Sweet. Yeah. I think you mentioned him maybe in our All-Stars. I think we were talking All-Stars. You kind of threw his name out there that he almost should deserve some type of nod, some type of recognition. So, yeah, he's played well since then, right? So, it's one of those things. One of the things, I didn't send you an email. Maybe we'll do it next week. As I was kind of looking at just... I mean, with coaching changes that have been going on in this division, it's almost one of those, and like we're getting close to the trade deadline. You kind of wonder too. The Senators are who we thought they were. I don't know if they have any kind of breakout pieces, any UFAs that they're going to try and sell to move on, because I think lots of their better players are their young core, and you're obviously not going to move on from those pieces, right? So they're kind of at just a standstill, just status quo, and try and build organically, right?
And they do have the pieces to do that, and who knows like how long it's going to take if they have to implode halfway through. But the Sens are on like the precipice of being a good team, and it's really going to be this year and next year how they develop and how ready they are to compete.
Let's hope their fan base can survive. All right, how about onto another miserable fan base, onto the Vancouver Canucks. They're 5 points clear of the Senators for the basement, but the Senators do have a game in hand, so could be close for that bottom spot. Vancouver, what's going on, Vancouver?
They shocked everybody when they beat the Leafs the other night. What was it, 3-1? And the biggest thing in that game is something that we've seen, at least I've kind of recognized, develop over the last few weeks here, and that is Thatcher Demko is actually starting to play good hockey. So he's posted an above average save percentage in 4 of his last 5. I think it's been in like the 94 range for the most part, which is a huge step up in the right direction. They need him to play that level for the rest of the season if they have any hope of getting into the playoffs. I don't know. Like, offensively, I don't have any concerns with the Canucks, but defensively, they are such a liability, and they need Demko to steal games unless they have these wholesale changes, which we haven't seen over the last 2 years, and I'm not expecting now. So Demko, he's a guy to keep your eye on. I don't know if this is just one of those short bursts and he goes like hurtling back down to his average over the next little while here. But he has helped the Vancouver Canucks over the last couple weeks, and he should help them. If not tonight, then over the next little while here too.
Super. Now, I know you said shocked. I was fully expecting the Leafs to lose that game the other night. Second night on a back-to-back. They just did kind of a clean sweep on the Oilers throughout the week. Hutchison, I don't think Michael Hutchison's that great of a backup goalie, so I was kind of expecting a bit of a letdown, and I had money on the Canucks. So thank you, Vancouver. You helped me recoup because I bet on the Oilers for 3 games in a row. And was greatly I was like, God damn it. So, thanks, Vancouver. Thanks for helping my bankroll a little bit. Up to the Calgary Flames. They broke some news. They were kind of getting schooled a little bit by the Senators. Weren't playing great hockey. They won 7-2 or something like that. Had a bit of a blowout. And then they decided to, Jeff Ward, get the frick out of here. We're going retro. We're going back to like early 2000s with our coaching pick. And they brought back... What's his face? It was
Daryl Sutter.
Fuck, goddamn brain.
Get off the fucking bath salts, Mick. Jesus.
I'm comfortable with who I am.
The best part about this hiring is that now we get to witness Daryl Sutter try and figure out media pressers virtually. Like, that guy couldn't put a sentence together when people were like a foot away from him. Imagine him now trying to process things in a virtual world where he can't even see people. Like, I'm just so excited for this. And the best, I love that he couldn't even be here in time. He's like, I got some shit to do on my farm, so I'm gonna be there a day late. It's the most Sutter thing you could possibly do. Late for your own fucking press conference because you had some farming to take care of before you got to the hockey season. Like, good for you, Daryl Sutter.
Good for you. So, in between... You want to play a game? So I've pulled up the Wikipedia page. So between Daryl Sutter and Daryl Sutter, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 coaches. Do you think you could get 4 of them?
Oh, man. I don't think I could, but I'm willing to give this a shot here.
All right.
So, Daryl Sutter, but he had 2 stints with the Flames, right?
So it was 2003 to 2006 was a head coach, and now he is still the head coach. And in between there's 7 different names. So can you name 4 of the 7 different head coaches?
All right, I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit here. Jeff Ward was one of
Ding.
them. Glenn Gulutzan was one of them.
Ding!
I know the racist coach. Like, I can picture his face, but I'm just struggling with what his name actually was.
No shade. I couldn't remember Daryl Sutter, so...
So I got 2. Who else was in there for a little while? Was Craig Conroy the head coach for a bit?
I'm going to count that as an X and go, eh.
He was assistant coach. I know he was part of the coaching staff. Anyways, moving on. What the fuck was that guy's name? It started with I think his last name started with an R. No, it's not coming to me. Let's go back to 2010-ish. Who was 2010? You know what? Fuck this game. I give up. Who are the other guys?
So afterwards, it looked like he must have been fired mid-season. Jim Playfair took over. That's kind of a silly one. Followed quickly by Mike Keenan. Then Brent Sutter. So that's kind of a confusing one there. Bob Hartley. Probably forgot about Bob Hartley. Glenn Gulutzan, Bill Peters, Jeff Ward, and then back to Mr. Daryl Sutter.
Bill fucking Peters. God damn. Can't believe I missed that one.
Yeah, that's... I don't understand the hiring personally. I kind of feel like the Calgary Flames at this point, when your GM saying that this crew is not... they're not ready to kind of take the next step and win a championship, then what the fuck are you doing? Right? I was kind of already doing the fantasy trades, kind of what pieces could you move, right? Go from there, right? Like, I mean, I think they have pieces. I think the Monahans, the Goudreaus, the Kachucks, like if you wanted to go that route and just kind of blow it up wholesale, like they're going to fetch you back some pieces, right? Like you're going to have some good building blocks going forward if you want to kind of refresh, reload.
I don't know what Daryl Sutter, I'm exactly on the same page as you. I don't know what he can contribute in a modern hockey space where you rely on analytics and you can't, well, you avoid getting into those defensive battles where all you do is just fucking sit in the neutral zone. Like, that's not how hockey's played now. Yeah. So you can't get away with the holding, the interferences. Like, you actually have to have some skill. So he had some success with LA, and that was with a defensive brand of hockey.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what the Flames have with their roster composition being what it is right now. Yeah. So we'll see.
We'll see. And like I said, maybe next week I'll give Grant some heads up, and if we want to write some kind of like some faux trade ideas, because like maybe there's another Canadian team out there that needs a top center, right? Maybe their offense is like, okay, but Philip Deneau is their top center, and maybe trading for like a Sean Monahan might give them that step, in the right direction, and like they should try and win because they've got Carey Price in that. Not naming like specific team names or anything like that, but like maybe there's a team like that. Anyways, weird segue to the Montreal Canadiens. They had nothing to do with that last comment. They're at number 4, so they're sitting comfortably in a playoff spot. They got a couple games in hand over the Flames. They've got 2 points. Sky's the limit for Montreal, right? What's going on with Montreal this week?
So they finally got that new win under their head coach. That was kind of something, maybe not unexpected, but they finally got off the schneid. I think it was the 3rd game. They had that bad loss to Winnipeg, then the overtime loss, and they finally won. Mm-hmm. I don't think anything's happened since then. Maybe they maybe they played another game that I'm omitting or not thinking about, but Carey Price finally bounced back. He had that game. I think, was it a shutout even? He shut out the Sens, or it was maybe a 1-goal game. This team under this coach, I'm not sold on. I'm not happy with the coaching change. I said it last week. I'm going to reiterate after what I saw. I hope that they are better than what we've seen, and I hope that we get a coach other than what's his nuts in there, Dominique Ducharme. Somebody other than Ducharme is what I'm hoping for.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think you nailed it down. I think that was the last couple games Montreal played. Nothing super noteworthy. They're just, I don't know, doing their things. I hope maybe they start winning. Wink.
Maybe this isn't the right time to do it, but have you looked at our player pool to see how we're doing?
Looked at it. I got open right there. Look at that tab. Yeah, I'm up by 8 whole points. Now, again, there are some kind of those points in hand. So what we did was Grant made a bold proclamation that the Montreal Canadiens had the best offense in the Scotia North division. And I said, poppycock. So I took some Vancouver Canucks, compared them to the Canadiens. And as you see, I'm up about 8 points right now. But he does kind of have those game in hand. So he's got an extra 5 games to play. So you figure even if like they're low scoring affairs, like he's probably going to do that little bit of a catch up. But yeah. No real duds. I mean, Shea Weber's playing pretty light point hockey right now. Romanoff, get out of here, Romanoff. Josh Anderson is kind of quiet, Only 12 points on the season.
Josh Anderson, yeah, he hasn't been living up to the hype recently. He slowed down a little bit. That's kind of been the production issues or the output issues that they've had, is that other than Tyler Toffoli, they're not getting like consistent production, especially like Josh Anderson's one name that comes to mind. Nick Suzuki's another guy. Brendan Gallagher. We embrace Gallagher for his truculence, but he hasn't really been, producing recently. So the Canadians need their best players to be their best players, and that's kind of what they've been missing. At least they haven't had any luck getting points. So maybe that turns around. Winnipeg's a team that's terrible on the road. So if it does happen, maybe it happens tonight against the Winnipeg Jets.
Cool. Yo. And if we move up the standings, usually that'd be a great segue right into the next team, but for some reason the Jets have surpassed the Oilers. The Oilers sit 3rd. What happened to the Oilers this last week? That's weird. Usually they're up there. Huh.
I was looking into this earlier this week. I took a similar approach to you, and that I bet the Oilers every night this week because Toronto is just not a good road team. At least that's what I told myself. Obviously not the case. What was it? 3-1? No, 6-1. I can't remember. A whole fucking shitload to nothing, though. 3rd time in the year in his career, Connor McDavid's been held pointless for 3 straight games.
I think it was 3-0, 4-0, and then the final one was like 5-1 or something like that. There was
6-1.
back-to-back shutouts by Soup and Michael Hutchison. So, and Michael Hutchison sucks. Like, he's not good. So,
oh god, that fucking stung so much, Mick. I didn't even I had a whole bunch of stuff going on this week. Looked into it the next morning. I was like, we got shut out by Michael Hutchinson?
Yeah. It's not good. I mean, we saw this early on, back early February or something like that. There was about half a game, good 30 minutes against the Calgary Flames, where the Toronto Maple Leafs looked locked down defensively. They were playing responsibly. Everything kind of seemed like it was trending in that defensive way. And I said, if you can get consistency and do this for an extended period of time over a couple games, you're going to shock some teams. And they're going to be able to shut teams down. And I think that's kind of what we saw was this TJ Brody playing on the top line, and you're seeing the Muzzin and the Hull second pairing. Defensively, they're playing really, really well. And you sprinkle in just a little bit of random. Jimmy Vesey almost had a hat trick the other night, which again is one of those things that should make you feel bad about yourself. But when you get that second, third kind of scoring production, the sky's the limit. And I realize we're in the Edmonton section. We're talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, so I will stop. But McDavid and Draisaitl were also playing at as elite levels as you could, so there was going to be a little bit of a regression. So maybe we just saw their regression this week, and they're going to get back to it and beat up the Calgary Flames tonight. Would you not be surprised if Connor McDavid has a 5-point night tonight? Right, that happens, and you're like, oh, he's back at it, right?
God damn you, Mick. Why would you fucking curse? We're not even in the FanDuel section yet, and you're already fucking cursing me. Damn you.
I was trying to make you feel better, because otherwise I'd be like,
I don't want it anymore.
Yeah, actually, speaking of weird gambling advice, so I just assumed, I was like, emotional hedge, top two teams playing in the Scotia North, I will put some money on the Oilers to kind of lessen the blow. So all week, after they lost, I was putting together these complicated parlays and trying to get back my losses from the night before, and I was hitting on all of them. So overall throughout the week, I lost my plus 110 $25 wager, but then I was hitting these plus 800, plus 900 $5 picks or something like that to win that money back. And I was like, what a damn shame, you know? If you look at my little gambling tickets, I'm like, fuck, it's actually really infuriating. But hockey is kind of a game of just chasing, right?
I would say, if we're going to generalize, being successful in betting in hockey is that you have to react before the market does, and that is, you will see teams just plummet, and then you have to be there when they bounce back to be successful long term, because otherwise it's just you're like you said, chasing steam the entire week, just trying to recoup losses. So maybe interesting material to keep in the back of our mind for the Bettor Advice segment. But we have a couple teams left in our NHL North. God damn it! Who sponsors the North Division, Mick?
It's Scotia North, and if you bank with Scotia North, you will be ahead by a century, just like the Tragically Hip song that always plays during hockey night. And I'm like, good thing my money's with them, because fuck, I love me some Tragically Hip. So on to number 2, though, the Winnipeg Jets, and I don't know if Gord Downey ever wrote a song about Winnipeg.
100th Meridian. That was close to Winnipeg. I think it's in Manitoba somewhere.
Something like that. Yeah, maybe.
Huh. You didn't name them specifically, though, so I think you're right.
Yeah, all right. So the Winnipeg Jets this week, again, they're kind of playing just they're kind of the weird analytical are they the analytical darling, where just for no reason they're winning despite their metrics this year?
Yeah, I wouldn't call them a darling so much as a fucking mind-numbing experience that you just can't figure out. I don't know how they win games, especially they are, without a doubt, the absolute worst team from an advanced metrics perspective on the road. But I think they're 4 games above 500 on the road. For some reason they win on the road. And I mentioned it last week, and it's just the truest thing that I can think to describe what they do. When their goaltending lets them down, their offense bails them out. When their offense fails them, their goaltending bails them out. And it's just this fucking magical balance that I don't know how they do what they do, but they do it. Yeah.
Oh, I pulled up Cap Friendly just because I was like, we have to just look at this and talk about this, and I want the visual. Josh Morrissey, he's getting paid okay, right? He's an okay, maybe above average defenseman. But other than that, they've got nothing. Like Dylan DeMello, Pionk, Nathan Bellio, Tucker Poolman. I mean, Tucker Poolman's my favorite defenseman, but just because he's got a fucking sick-ass name, probably got a cool stash to rock, nice flow. But other than that, I agree with you. Like, I kind of look at the Winnipeg Jets as in my mind, they're the same team that got rocked by the Flames last year in the playoffs. Like, remember that playoff series? It wasn't close. The same iteration of the Calgary Flames ran over this Winnipeg Jets team, and almost like they shouldn't belong in kind of playoff hockey. But now, for some reason, they're the second team in this fairly competitive Scotia North. It just doesn't make sense, right? Like, I don't get it.
And the biggest disconnect, I just looked into it. 6-3 on the road. Somehow, I don't know how they have those 6 wins, but the biggest disconnect is we look at their advanced metrics and how bad they are, and that is how they have everything working against them, but they still have a plus 16 goal differential. Like, it's just like, I can't, like, there's so many disconnects here. I can't I just can't connect the dots to see how this leads to victories. So,
I mean, if you want to be simplistic, and like, I sometimes I do just am a simpleton at heart. So, I mean, like, there's a chance that Hellebuck is just that good, right? Like, Hellebuck is kind of the difference maker for that team. We're seeing him as one of the elite goalies in the league right now, and he's kind of helping this team maybe just excel, right? Like, it doesn't take much. It just takes that one extra piece, right? Like, if you have Connor McDavid, he's the best forward in the NHL. You're going to have a good team. If you have the best Hellebuck, he might be the best goalie. You're going to have an okay team, right? Like, and maybe sometimes hockey's just that simple, right?
Yeah. It's a little chaotic, I would say, and for whatever reason, they've embraced the chaos and they're doing fine this year. And you see it every year. Teams, you have outliers. You have teams that just are this successful for whatever reason. They find a way to win games, and maybe this year the Winnipeg Jets are just the outliers. And if they can embrace that all the way to, the Stanley Cup Finals, maybe a victory, then fuck, good for them. Yeah. Can't fault them for that, I guess.
Not at all. That leaves us with the last team first across the board. First in NHL, first in the Scotia North, first in your hearts, potentially. Toronto Maple Leafs. First overall line, if you put Tavares, Matthews, and Joe Thornton all together. So a lot of firsts going on right now in Toronto.
You really just had to hammer that home, didn't you son of a bitch?
Well, at some point, someone on Twitter I saw that they were asking, they kind of was like, I'm going to pose a serious question. If Thornton, Tavares, and Matthews all play on the power play, is that the first time that 3 first overall picks are on the ice at the same time as they're playing the Oilers? And they're like, no, I'm sure that Hall, Yakupov, and like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins all played together at some point, right? And you're like, oh yeah, all right, well. I mean, I'd say one of those things is not like the other, but...
It's been a long few years for you two. Don't fucking discount this. Oh, we're so good this year.
Yeah.
When you have to consider the 10 years that it took, not even more than 10 years to get here. Last time I remember the Leafs being successful in the playoffs was Ed Belfour. Ed Belfour stealing a series.
Yeah, like looking at like that Sundin team from, what is it, 04 or something, 03, 04, is probably the last time you'd say like, this looks like a really good team. So again, it has been a while, so I'm going to take that liberty and just kind of enjoy the experience. I'm not gonna brag. I think you see it. They back it up, so.
They do, and that's like, this is one of those teams that does embrace the analytics. I did notice a few things when I was looking at this team earlier this week, though. It was even actually just yesterday. But Toronto is not as good on the road as they are at home. And they're not as good from a possession standpoint, and I think that just goes to show that maybe possession's a little overrated. Negative relative possession metrics, so that is generally they are outpossessed. That's especially true on the road, where they have been outpossessed in, I think it was 9 of their last 10 games. But as far as production goes, they find a way to generally outshoot players, or outshoot teams, that is, and outproduce them. And that's obviously been the recipe for success, that, you know what, we're going to create more high probability chances than you. And with the lineup that we have, specifically like that forward group, any of the top 2 lines, anybody can score. So by putting more skilled players in high probability areas, they have found this recipe for, we're going to beat you because you're a fucking asshole. So they know what they're doing. I don't see really what the limit is. Like, the limit for me doesn't exist. Like, this could be a Stanley Cup winning team. But the one thing that I think they're missing out on is just like I don't see anybody on their roster who can say, I've won and this is how we win in the playoffs. And that's one piece that I'm just struggling with. Nobody has ever, nobody on that team, I don't think, has ever been on a deep playoff run. Maybe Wayne Simmons, but
yep.
I feel like they're just missing one X factor.
Tavares has had his moments. Of course, didn't go far. And, Thornton, he went to a cup with the Sharks, right? So, you do have that there. I guess Brody, they had a couple deep runs in Calgary, right? So, there are maybe, one or two pieces. Jake Muzzin, he's a Stanley Cup winner.
But we talked about Joe Thornton as a guy who, was not... He's, one of the biggest losers. It took him 18 years to get to the Stanley Cup final. I wouldn't say that he's an example of a guy who says, this is how we win. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm bitter.
Fair enough. And I think time will tell. I think it's going to be a bit of a shock. And again, just because of the way the playoffs work, right? We're looking at, they start today. We get a Toronto-Montreal first round. You're probably getting the Jets or Oilers in the second round. And then all of a sudden you're playing, and I don't know how that breaks down. I don't know if it's by standings, but I don't know.
So if they where they will hold the advantage is against through the first two rounds where they actually have dominated these teams. Once they get out of that bubble and they have to go find a home south of the border, that's where I'm starting to struggle with how do they optimize their success. And I don't think that they would have one guy they could rely on.
Before we move on, should I be a Debbie Downer for a second?
Yeah, okay, let's hear it.
All right. Years past, we've seen a player named Austin Matthews be in the Stanley Cup Finals, the playoffs, and when the pressure's on and the crowd starts getting a little bit rowdy, it seems like he falls off a bit. Whereas when there's no crowd whatsoever, he's been playing at a very elite level. So are we going to see that as maybe the season progresses in the postseason? Maybe some fans get in some arenas and he just wilters under the pressure. Maybe he's one of the best no fan players of all time, right? Are we seeing that?
That's a good point. And I think that one thing, because these teams are going to, one of the Canadian teams is going to have to go down to the States. They have to find an arena to go play at for the last two rounds. Why not go to Arizona? It's Austin Matthews' home. Even if fans are allowed to be there, I guarantee you nobody's fucking showing up.
Not at all.
Arizona should be the new Toronto, and I guarantee you, if your theory is correct, we will see Austin Matthews thrive.
Thrive. And then the other thought, too, I just had, is this team might be built really well, and maybe it's just to play against these teams. And all the Canadian teams, they kind of look the same. They're a little bit smaller, they're more skill-focused than they are kind of big and truculent, right? And maybe that's just the weakness of this Leafs roster, right? So if they run into a team like the Boston Bruins that are a little bit bigger, they're a little bit more physical, the Washington Capitals that have some more weight to throw around, they get knocked off. And maybe it's just one of those things where you need to get lucky, you need to hit those fast skill-based teams in the playoffs, right, to have success, and it's just going to be kind of the luck of the draw, right? Who gets out of the other rounds. So
yeah, what could we see in this or in the West though is what if Dallas recaptures their glory? How easy it would be to beat Dallas, who scores 2 goals a game. Sure, maybe they're a little thicker, but I guarantee you, if you score 2 goals, chances are you're beating the Dallas Stars.
All right, sure. Cool. All right. I was trying to play Debbie Downer. Grant brought me back up, so now I'm feeling good about life. Anyways, so now we're done with that. I'll move on to, kind of done headlines, on to my dirty fantasy. What we've done in the past is we've done pools with friends. They fizzle out. No one really cares. What we wanted to do is take a stab at trying to do some daily fantasy, take some advice. We've had some success, some not success. I think I'm not cashing in most of these pools. And it's usually something dumb where it's a 50-50. I think I've got one pool right now. It's a 50-50. Last week, I had Connor McDavid, and I kind of built my strategy around him, and then he went pointless, so that doesn't get me very far.
Yeah, he screwed me last week, too. I think I had a couple Jets. I was, right on the edge of cashing in tournament, and Connor McDavid's 1.6 points really did me in. So.
Yeah.
I can't, and the one strategy that I have to adapt myself to is that I always do tournaments. Like I always just think, here, you know what? I'm gonna have that one magical lineup, but it's so fucking stupid because there's people who can throw in hundreds of lineups, and when you go through the winners, it's generally people who have like 10 plus lineups who end up winning the tournament. So I got to get back into those, like, I don't know what the tournaments are actually called, but where you're just in a group where it's half the people cash, half the people don't. I think that was a
50-50. Yeah, I usually do those. And I mean, like, I don't do a lot. I've got, I don't know, $70 in this pool. So if I do $2 a week, I get to have 35 losing entries, essentially, right? So that's pretty much my strategy. I'm not trying to get rich. I'm just trying to, like, can I figure this out? So should I run through my lineup and then we kind of talk through yours?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the well on this one. I found Carey Price against the Jets. I believe, I think they're going to have a bit of a bounce back. I think Carey Price is going to have a good game tonight. Carey Price in net at $7,600 seems like a bit of a steal. You're saving a little bit on your goalie too. That is, and what I'm seeing is it's really imperative you need a winning goalie, right? Last week, Vasilevsky, I think in the pool I was playing, of the 10 guys, the top 6 all had Vasilevsky. He had something like 57 points just on his own or something like that. So that could be really determined. I realized that Weber's not doing a lot, but at $5,100, seems like pretty good value there. I paired him with Drew Doughty at $6,100, and his goofy little smile, so I'm not spending a lot there. And then I just kind of mixed and matched. I really like this Winnipeg game to go over. And I took Pierre-Luc Dubois, paired him with Kyle Connor, Nick Suzuki, paired with Jonathan Drouin. If those guys get something going there, I'm in the money. And then that left me a little bit for my utility spots. So I put it all on Austin Matthews against Vancouver later tonight at $8,800. And one with a little bit of an Alex Tuck against the Sharks. I don't think the Sharks play great defense. Vegas is prone to score. And Alex Tuck is one of those names you see randomly pop up on like stat lists. So I'm thinking he's probably worth something. And at $4,800, I think that's not bad, right?
I just have to say, we have doomed Carey Price tonight. So when his leg falls off, you can put that on us.
Sorry.
I also went with Carey Price.
Carey Price, you are our Canada Pucks goalie of the week, or the night.
He's gonna have, his heart's gonna explode or something. Like, I don't want to know what we've done to Carey Price. But anyways,
poor guy.
Carey Price starting in net for Montreal against Winnipeg. Like I mentioned earlier, Winnipeg's terrible on the road. Price had that good game. Hopefully he can carry that momentum. He's not even that expensive as far as starting goaltenders go. He's on home ice. It's Saturday night. I know he's let me down on Saturday night in the past already this season, but I like him. I paired him with Jeff Petrie. So I thought about Weber because he, from a cost-effective standpoint, Weber's way cheaper, kind of comparable fantasy value. I went with Jeff Petrie. It just seems to be his year. He gets those clappers from the point. They seem to be finding the back of the net. So I paired him with Miro Heiskanen on the back end. Heiskanen, obviously part of Dallas's big defensive structure, but he also has so much upside, and we haven't really seen him flourish this year. But I think it's a good bounce back spot for the Stars tonight. So I'm doing Dallas or Miro Heiskanen with Jeff Petrie as my defenseman. Going all the way to the front, let's start at center, or I guess work our way up to center. Connor McDavid, like you said, we wouldn't be surprised to see a 5-point night from him this year or this night. Like, he's been held off the score sheet. I think it was 2 weeks ago where he had that 5-point night against the Flames on Saturday night. They ended up winning 7-1. If this is a time to bounce back, then, you know, he's not even the most expensive option. Matthews is more expensive than him. So I paired him with Puljujärvi. I just love the compliment. Puljujärvi skates on a line with him, but he's only priced at $4,500. So I'm looking at Connor McDavid, Puljujärvi on my wing. Other center, Joe Pavelski. Mr. fucking Joe has been one of Dallas's most productive forwards. He's modestly priced at $7,000, so it gives you some wiggle room with the other complementary pieces. Who I ended up landing on Gabriel Landeskog. So Landeskog playing in Colorado against Anaheim. The biggest thing going in his favor is Ryan Miller is starting in net, which should automatically think, like, if that doesn't send the over alarm bells going, I don't know what will. McKinnon's also out, so he's going to see an increased role, and he's only priced at $6,500, so now he's skating on the line with Rantanen, and I think that we'll see him work his way on the score sheet both with power play and even strength assists. That leaves me with my 2 utility spots who I've used to complement both Carey Price and Jeff Petrie. I went with Brendan Gallagher and Phil Deneau. Phil Deneau is so inexpensive, $3,700.
Yeah.
I feel like he's worth the gamble. Like, it's just, he's got to score, man. Like, he plays on the first line. Like, he has to score, right?
That was my strategy last week. It didn't pay off, but I do think if you're riding for $3,700 for like a nothing player, in theory, you're taking $1,000 and investing it somewhere else, right? Like, and when he does go off, he's worth it, right?
And that's kind of like the strategy. It's the mindset that I used with McDavid too. Like, I don't want to miss out on that big breakout performance, and I have that feeling with Deneau tonight. So paired him with Gallagher, skates on line with them. If they put this line in a successful position or in a position to be successful, and that is against like the third, fourth lines of Winnipeg in the offensive zone, I could see them having a big day. So that rounded out my roster. I think I used every last dollar, so maybe tonight is the night it all comes together for your old pal Grant.
Sweet. Yo. Yeah, I like some of those picks too, you know, and I might even move a Doughty for like a Heiskanen, because I mean, like, I imagine similar point production, you're saving $1,000 right there. Maybe turn that Alex Tuck into something else, right? And go from there. And yeah, like Philip Deneau, I kind of want to just make him like a mainstay just because of the savings you get elsewhere, right? So I don't know, maybe I'll tinker around with this a little bit, but again, food for thought. And I do like, I mean, I realize they're the highest priced guys, but like, you need to put Matthews or McDavid in your lineup just because of the level they're playing right now. You're going to feel stupid when you look at your like standings afterwards. The winners is going to have one of them, right? If not both of them. So
yeah, I agree 100%.
All right, now we got to talk about this next part, which I hate. So I'm just going to throw this out there. One of the worst feelings in the world is not losing money in this Bettor Advice contest. So, sorry, off the top, Bettor Advice, what we're doing is each week we're taking $100, we're betting it on NHL games, and we're just kind of tracking our progress over the season. In theory, we're making a little bit of money every week. Like, we should be making, I don't know, 5-10% after every week. So this is show 7, so we should be sitting plus 60 is kind of what you're thinking, like if we're hitting that sharp money, right? Like if you're hitting like following someone, like you should be kind of increasing your bankroll by that each week. So how are we doing? I know you did pretty well last week.
Well, I finally hit on one of those overtime bets. I think it was the first one that I made all season.
Yep.
I think
should have done it last night. There was like 4 of them.
And you know what? I don't want to get it on a personal level. I had a shootout ticket last night, and I got 2 of the 3 games right. But I had Boston, Washington. Yeah, missed out big time. Yeah. So that one stung a little bit. But I'm expecting that to continue. Before we get there, I'll just recap last week. So you had 3 totals. Those didn't go your way. 2 5.5s for Philly, Buffalo, Dallas, Tampa. Missed both those. Edmonton, Toronto. Edmonton let you down. Sorry, bud. I think we both got fisted by Edmonton last week. You did cash on Flames money line, and your undoing was just that parlay where I think Chicago won, but Carolina didn't, or
nope.
Vice versa.
Carolina won in overtime, which you had the shootout for that, but I had Chicago over Detroit, and Chicago like ran Detroit out of town in the whole series except for that one game. As well as my overs, every game went over the total except for the ones I chose. So I don't think going over is a terrible strategy. We're seeing lots of scoring. Like don't let that be a deterrent. It's just I had the bad luck on that one, right? So yeah.
Yeah, those did sting, but I feel like your money was in the right spot, especially with, like, I re-listened to it. Your strategy, I feel like, was on point. It was just fucking bad luck. Yeah. Dallas was shut out, and that really was your undoing on the plus money over. Recapping my week, Carolina, Florida draw. That one did hit, so that was 310. I ended up winning 62. St. Louis, San Jose. I don't know why. I loaded up on the overtime bet, and I acknowledged that it was going to be a high-scoring game. 7-6 was the total. If you would have hit one of the alternate totals, you could have made money. And then Edmonton minus 104, that cost me. Winnipeg ended up winning in overtime. They were plus 116 underdogs on home ice, so that worked out well for me. On the season, I'm shooting 50%, so that is 8-8. I have wagered $600, and I am up $1.04.
So, dang. Great.
0.17% return on investment. Bit of a longer year for you, Mick, minus 94. But I feel like this is going to be the week where you get it all back. Who are you looking at tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we've alluded to it a little bit, I think, throughout the show. I was going to be really boring. I was going to do one pick, one little parlay. I like Toronto. I don't think Toronto's going to lose 2 games to Vancouver. Another team, almost across the board outside of those bottom 2 ones, I think your favorite. So I'm taking Toronto. And then we've kind of just been touting it. Carey Price is going to win Saturday night. It's kind of Carey Price's night. I think those 2 together, I get a plus 162. I'm going to put $70. So I hit that one parlay. My deficit is done. I'm up. I'm a little bit into the plus. But I was like, that's boring to do my whole bankroll on that. I need to have a little bit of that. So I've got 3 overs. I'm going to do St. Louis, Los Angeles, over 5.5 at minus 105. I've got $10 on that. Calgary, Edmonton. I think we're going to see some scoring tonight. So I'm going to go over 6.5 at plus 105 for another 10. And then I like the Wild, Arizona at over, and it's like over 5.5 at plus 115 for another $10 there. I think we're going to see some scoring there. Yeah, diversify a little bit, right? Because, I mean, again, if Vancouver pulls off another upset or something like that, I'll be sitting there being like, well, that was a waste of money, right? So I think this week I'll probably get back into the pluses a little bit and go from there. So
I don't think our listeners are actually going to believe that we didn't conspire on our betting picks prior to recording. I'm going to let it rip anyway. So I am also on Minnesota, Arizona, over 5.5. I have it at plus 105. Let me just see if that's...
I think that's what I said, right? Yeah.
I thought you said plus 115.
I have plus 115, yeah.
Okay, I'll take it at plus 115. Take that easy money for $20. But last week, we had said, you know what, sometimes when you bet this 5.5, a lot of the time it just ends up right on 5. So I said, you know what, I'm going to take a different strategy. I have applied that strategy. I think that this is a 3-2 game no matter what. If it doesn't get over, then it's going to be like 3-2 one of these teams. So you can go Arizona 3-2 at plus 1,900 or Minnesota 3-2 at plus 1,700. And I've got $5 on both of those. So
sweet.
Here's hoping this strategy, if it doesn't pay off, I'm going to scrap it. I just thought it was worth trying. Maybe we can make it work, so we'll see. I am going to another over, Anaheim, Colorado, over 5.5, minus 114. These guys are on the second night of a back-to-back. Ryan Miller is starting. I forget what the Colorado's goalie, Mira something. Anyways, both teams... So I'm expecting Colorado to have a big output. You saw that with my FanDuel lineup.
Miska. You remember that Miska goalie? I think I just killed him.
Man, if that doesn't generate a few more followers, I don't know what will.
Yeah, come on, guys. That's cold.
So, over 5.5, minus 114 for $20. And then I've got a moneyline pick, Dallas minus 142 for $30. I don't know why Dallas has struggled recently. And it was really, I think, a cratering. So they started off scoring at nearly 16% of their shots, on nearly 60% of their shots. So that is like basically 1 out of every 5 shots they were scoring, which is just absurd. That was the first 8 games. Last 10 games, they are now scoring at a 5% clip. So that is basically once every 20 shots they are scoring. And so it's just like this exact fucking reciprocal of, they were doing so well, it was bound to tail off. They have swung so far the other direction that I can't help but think that they have a big output. I'm hoping tonight is the night against Columbus where Columbus is just torches on the hot seat. And I feel like when coaches are, coaching for their positions, they change their strategy. They're just in their own mind, they're squeezing a little too hard. And I think Dallas is going to run away with this one. So Dallas minus 142 for $30. That leaves me with $30. I can't. It's not Saturday night. Isn't Saturday night without a wager on a 60-minute draw. Tonight it is Edmonton, Calgary. Calgary's coming off a big win. I think they've been playing well recently. They've got a couple, or it was 7-3 win that I was thinking about. Edmonton off 3 tough losses. Edmonton's priced as favorites in this one by a substantial margin, and I don't know why, considering the position these teams find themselves in. So I am going with Edmonton, Calgary draw plus 320. It's a Hockey Night in Canada game. One of those games it's this weird thing where Saturday night games always tend to go overtime. So I have Edmonton, Calgary as that game tonight for $20. That leaves me with $10 parlay, 2 money line wagers. Montreal, like Mick, I think is the right side to be on. However, I have gone on the opposite end of the spectrum with Toronto, Vancouver, and taken the Vancouver Canucks.
Wow.
So I have Vancouver, Montreal, $3.49 for $10. Sorry, plus $3.49 for $10.
Sweet.
End of a road trip. Maybe Toronto comes out a little bit flat. Maybe Demko steals it. It just felt like too steep a price on the late Leafs. So Vancouver was the side I went with.
It is Braden Holtby in net, so versus Freddie Anderson. So we'll see.
God damn it! Is that confirmed?
I believe so. That's kind of what I'm seeing on my score app. So I miss the score too. I'm trying to watch highlights in the mornings, and you get these sports nets where they have vignettes playing and stuff like that. Remember just when it used to show you highlights of the games, showed you the stat lines, and it just cycled through every game in every sport? They're missing that. Good old score.
And that's the thing, too. These assholes who just sit on your TV trying to give you advice. And I know maybe that doesn't sound so good, but we're on computers, not TVs for one. But the score was so good at teasing out information, and now we get this expert analysis from guys who, they don't have any skin in the game. Sure, you can tell me looking at what happened that this is why it happened, but you can't look at this and say, here, this is what we saw, or this is the, analytics that this is what the analytics tells about this next game. I miss those glory days of just being hungover, watching the same highlight pack for 4 hours.
Yeah. So, any uninformed, if you're a little bit younger, maybe you weren't just losers that sat on your couch for hours in the day. They used to have these, sports channels where, the sports highlights was an hour-long package, and they just rolled through literally every single game, and it would just be a continual cycle. Maybe it was only 7, 8 minutes, 12 minutes if it was a busy night, but they just rolled through everything. It was great. It kept you up to date. I really felt like I had a good pulse on almost everything throughout the league, whereas, nowadays, when was the last time I saw a Dallas Stars highlight package? Right? Unless I'm trying to read a box score or something, and I don't think box scores tell you very much, and if you're reading a box score to try and understand a game, I think you're missing out on kind of a lot more. There's a lot more intangibles that you see just watching the game, and we just don't get that nowadays, and that's a lost art. So
maybe this will be our stepping off point then. The world is looking for a new Tim and Sid. Why don't we just start a reiteration of the score? Well, obviously, if they're listening, then we didn't use their ideas in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Definitely didn't.
But
why not just do highlight package, voiceovers, 5 minutes of gambling advice, and then fuck it, on to the next hour. Do it over again.
I think there's probably a market for it. I don't know. Obviously we'd need some type of big money coming in to kind of fund that, right? To get the rights to everything. But once it's there, I think it's golden. And again, I think there's a market.
If any sugar mamas are tuning in, then you know what? Me and Mick, two handsome cats. Easy going. Like to crush beers and win bets.
Fucking do it.
We'll take some of your divorcee money. We don't care.
Do it.
We have no shame.
Yeah. So, good night of hockey tonight. I do agree with some of those. I was actually looking at that Dallas Stars pick, being like, oh, that one's not bad, too. And a lot of it is just trending. When you see a team on a big winning streak, 4 or 5 games, and another team's coming in with a losing streak, at some point that's going to flip, right? So it's just kind of being on the right side of things. I think Dallas is in a good position there. That was kind of my only note off of that. We disagree on the Toronto game, so we shall see what is right, who is wrong. Other than that, that's kind of the show. So, good stuff.
But a show wouldn't be a show without the Babe of the Week. I think we've already tried this once, but we're going back down under again. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the constant sunshine that just makes these blonde Australian babes so noteworthy of our attention. But our Babe of the Week is Carla Florencia, who's an Australian blogger and got some of the best thigh gap a man could need in his life. Her Instagram handle is I am Calu. So basically IAMCALU. There's literally nothing wrong with this woman.
Yeah, not
absolute
bad.
dime.
Oh, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm still in love with this Michaela Demeter from last week. Like,
I told you she could be like literally our mascot. Like when we start our sports network, she's gonna be the one person we hire to and that everybody will tune in for. And it doesn't even matter what we say because we're gonna be on mute anyways.
exactly. Like highlights in the back end, she can just sit there, look pretty, do her thing, promote her like $15 a month fan subscription sites. And I was looking at that and I was like, I got $15 to spare.
Could you imagine if it was just goalie highlights too? It's like the best of both worlds for you, man. You finally get the highlight package.
Big fucking glove save, and then just kind of oh, okay, okay, all right. Oh, yeah, so good. So that wraps up another show, another week. I think next week we're probably coming at you at a different time. Although my uploading time onto YouTube is like ridiculous. Like last week it was like 3 hours. Like I had it queued up at like 11:30 or something, and it was like almost 3 o'clock before it showed up. So again, maybe I have to move my computer just a little bit closer to the internet. We'll see. So
maybe if you delayed the adult video watching for like stealing bandwidth, man.
I can't do it. It's just impossible. So with that, party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We'll see everybody next week.